Then on that last presentation, I've never heard of any return of investment that's too large. Could you just explain that? What did you mean by that?
Yes, in fact, too large, it means that the time to make the recuperation of the investment was too large. We are speaking about 14, even 17 years before the system is affordable. But the problem is that the time life of the technology is only 30 or 14 years. So
That's too,
for supercaps.
Okay. So it's really the time, the length of time compared to the, which in fact kind of seamlessly moved me on to one of the questions that I have, which also I'd like to throw out maybe to the audience, is technology is certainly going to be part of the picture. We've heard about that, and if we just think a little bit more on that at this moment. What in the panel's view is the most compelling argument for technology, and where are the quick wins? What's the affordability? Because we can, technology can be extremely expensive. What would anyone think of being, let's say, the most compelling arguments for technology, and what are the areas of quick wins that really metros and light rail organizations could look at, or even national rail?
But maybe two figures for that question that were in the slides. So our Metro EcoDrive project, 15% reduction. That's just, in a way, being smart and understanding better our network. 15% reduction. And our next step would be reversible substations with similar gains, but with much higher investment. So technology is part of the answer, but it won't be the only answer. And it's in the second part that you could go for interesting technologies.
Anyone else have any?
As explained our colleague from Poland, the first and I think the easier way to make spare is to change the habits of the people. And that's why we make with EcoDrive. In fact, EcoDrive was to explain to the driver to go slower. And we came from the speed, the maximum speed was 72 km/h to 60 km/h. And that's why we had to make the formation of our driver, metro driver, to follow the signalization which we made on the track. But you can make with habits, with changing habits, a big amount of spare money, but you don't have to invest a lot of money. That's the first step. Then after, if you want to spare more, you have to invest more.
Let me just quickly say, I think from a macro level, a macro view and a sustainability view, we still are using energy the same way we have for 100 years. We have to find new technologies that will bring us out of almost the cave, so to speak, in terms of energy, because of all of the other detrimental effects that come about because of the kind of energy we use and the way we use it. So technology really needs to be focused on resolving energy problems, the way we use it and how we acquire it.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think that approach that Ticket to Kyoto has made is quite interesting, because it's that, first of all, let's say, before starting to think regarding how things that we do consume energy, is that first of all we have to think about it. Say maybe we should try initially to reduce our consumption, just using less the cars and so on. Then second step is that where quick wins are, is that as we see it, for example, Metro Bilbao, as they reduced a lot the consumption. For example, thinking of what's more important, that the train is 5 seconds late or the train consumes less energy. Because previously everyone's thinking, no, punctuality is the most important thing, but okay, maybe 15 seconds is a problem, but 5 seconds might not be a problem, and maybe this makes you, let's say, you have to be very open-minded to try it. And then, let's say, for the remaining, let's say, the technology have to be developed in order to gain this gift, to get the most, but the technology has, let's say, has to be affordable. Let's say if the investment is not returned, let's say, in a, let's say, normally in the business, it
3 to 5 years.
doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And Warsaw, I mean, you've done a lot on some fairly low-tech stuff, but also it's obviously delivering and part of the bigger picture.
You know, I think it's a matter of your financial situation. You can buy new technology and paying in advance for being energy efficient, or if you don't have enough money, you can do a lot of other things like STIB, and we trained our drivers, and we didn't reduce the speed of the trains. We just observed and measured that some drivers have a style of driving which is not consuming so much energy. They started slower, maybe, or use in other ways brakes, yeah? Whilst we implemented recuperation, we just spent a lot of time of measuring different things. That's why we are coming to this decision to train them, yeah? And we just choose the best people of our own people, and they just told how to do it, yeah? Like every other drivers with cars, yeah?
So it's that convergence of small steps in behavior change, and a nudge from technology can really deliver very big benefits, which end up on the bottom line as well, that I think we've heard about. Is anyone in the audience, do they also agree with the kind of things that we talked about? Who's using regen braking, or please?
My name is Thomas Siegel from Bombardier Transportation, so I'm a little bit looking from the rolling stock side. Is the gentleman from Utah said about technologies need to be developed, and I have a little bit of view that most of the technology, regardless which, let's say, main supplier it is, are available. They simply need to be invested in that. It is an investment, unfortunately, but it pays back. We have an initiative which is called Eco4. I think our competitors, Siemens, they have something similar. Our other competitors, they have it. It is, most of it, it's all available. Just need to buy it.
So what's that compelling argument? What is that compelling argument that is going to get people to buy it?
Sorry, one thing to add is, and also that near the way how, let's say, tenders are specified, that those the implementation of those technologies are really appreciated and valued. So we see tendency towards that. That's a good trend, but we are simply not there.
It's getting there. Would anyone like to comment on that from the panel? Yes.
Well, let me just quickly say the problem we've got in energy policy and most other technology policies is that we really don't have a good system for measuring the return on investment. We look at the simplest costs, the ones that are most obvious, but we never calculate, we don't have good models for calculating the cost of what happens after you use the energy and all the deleterious effects that occur in the environment and in society. We don't put a dollar value to that. If we could come up with a good standard that we could all agree on for dollar values in that area, we may make very different decisions about acquisitions of technology, because right now it looks like those technologies are too expensive. They may not indeed be too expensive in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Okay, just a remarks, three remarks. 20 years ago, for the public transportation, the cost of energy was not a problem. Now we are looking at. Second point, when you said, okay, the technology is available, I agree with you, but I will say to you, it exists since the 90s, when you are going to the industrial company, and you have in your company different business units. You have already people which are working for the industry. I said for the mill, for example, and they have already, since the 90s, the big motor in the mill are generating energy, electrical energy, to the grid. And third point, in fact, the problem is that I think the business unit transportation was not see what is happening in the business unit industry, in the company, and so you have now only the product. And when you see the list of reference, or the list of system, installed system, there is not a lot. There is not a lot. And I hope to make my colleague more, how you say?
Create a little debate, maybe. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
In fact, this technology has, for me, 30 years. Is 30 years old. So you don't have to ask to the operator expensive price, because that means that you have 30 years of experience in this technology.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand what you're saying. It's Steve Robier from Siemens. I agree with my colleague from Bombardier. This technology is existing in a lot of the products that we have. And you have one very easy way in order to ensure that it gets into the products that you buy, and that's through your evaluation criteria. If you put evaluation criteria into a bid that stresses energy consumption, and you want to have that into your trains, then we will design the train, or we will design our bid in order to adapt ourselves towards that evaluation criteria. The problem that we have is a lot of operators, probably none present today, but a lot of operators their main criteria is price, it's capital price. And therefore, we all as suppliers naturally want to win. So we design the train to be low priced, but not necessarily for the whole life cycle, the most maximum value. And I think that's something that, you know, it is a dialogue that needs to take place with the supplier base, is we would love to be able to have those kinds of things to offer to you. But we also need you in order to put that into your evaluation criteria to give us the chance to win a contract by putting that type of technology into place.
I agree with your point, and it may be interesting to compare with the bus business. In that case, you have the Clean Vehicle Directive by the Commission that makes you have to use the complete life cycle analysis in your tender. So in a sense, we are constrained to do that. But of course, I agree with you. We should do that in all our business cases, in all our buyings. But the thing is, it's also complicated for public transport companies to go into that mindset. It will take years because it does take more time to do tenders, and I think people have to learn internally.
I agree, and the offer is there is as a supplier base, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of my competitors at the same time, is we are open to those discussions. We would love to have those discussions with you. And I mean, John, you know, in the US, it's probably, I mean, I think Europe is much further advanced than the United States is. Sorry about that, but you are much more advanced in Europe in terms of understanding the whole life cycle costs. In the United States, it comes down to price. And there is no understanding, well, there's very little understanding that you need to look at an asset living 20, 30, 40 years. And they're slowly starting to come into that direction. But until it actually gets into the evaluation criteria, you're just not going to see it.
Okay, thank you. There's another question at the back.
Yeah, hello, Israel Labat from Bombardier as well. It's more than a question. I would like to share with you a feeling, and it's very related with what we are discussing now. I would like to thank you all, because I can see that you are making a really good effort to improve the world we are living in. But I feel a bit disappointed. I don't know if it's because of the time, but I have been, during the 2 days we have been in this conference, I've been listening to this sustainability, which is what in other forums we call corporate social responsibility. In other forums is ESG, or whatever you want to call it. And I have heard in all the presentations so far these three bases: economic, environment, and social. But when it comes to the reality, this is almost empty. You know, we are maybe 15% of the total audience here, and not only now, from the very beginning. You know, so what I find, what I find that is not very acceptable is that we are talking about sustainability, you know, and when it comes to the conference related to sustainability, there is, we are not all here, you know. I mean, at the very beginning of the presentation, I was thinking, okay, I know some things about corporate social responsibility, but is this bullshit? You know, because the message that we are transmitting right now is that this is real and this works, but the message behind, looking at the audience, this minimal audience, the message behind is that this is bullshit, because we don't really trust it. You know what I mean? You know, it's that's my feeling, and I would like to share that with you, and I would like to thank you all, because all your effort is really valuable for the community. You know, so thank you very much for that. And yeah, but for us, for some of us, actually, thank you.
I would like to say something about a factor that is really important, and you presented that the prices in Brussels for energy were rising by 30-something% in 3 years. We have between 2008 and 2009. The prices for energy in Poland were increasing by 68%. So, at that moment, we were just thinking what to do, yeah? Because nobody was able to pay these invoices. That's why I, as a financial officer, were thinking I must be involved in such a matter, because only the financial crisis is the best moment for starting thinking about sustainability, and maybe you know the economical situation changed so much that everybody will be interested in such a matter.
Yes, I think once it moves out of the fluffy green bunnies and saving the frogs kind of domain into something that actually has some real financial content, and maybe a carbon price will be that. I mean, that's going to be really shocking. How prepared are we to have that? I don't know. Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe about that point, so in a sense it's back to economics, so financial aspects will boost sustainability, but I believe, well, we found out recently that our passengers or our customers are like us to talk about what we're doing in terms of sustainability. They like us as STIB to show that indeed we're greener than cars. And why do they like that? Because if they're going on our buses, on our metro, on our trams, they want, in a sense, to be proud and to be boosted by that new image created. So we have greenwashing, that could be sustainable washing, but in a sense, we see that it's a good factor to make people go more on our public transport systems.
It's a small recompense for the effort that they make to actually maybe give up the supposed nicer environment of a car and take the right choice, as it were, for a low carbon offer or whatever. Okay.
But you know why it's so? That the new generations is now trained at the schools, and they are much more clever than we were at the time. And that's why I always say the best way is to teach people.
Yes, yes. So there's a huge education element as well that needs to try and get us to catch the hearts and minds of the general public. Because in that small poll we took, it showed that technology is going to deliver a certain amount, but if we don't combine it with behavior change, we're just not going to get there.
Maybe one comment, what Mrs. Mrs. Popinska is saying is, I think we as an industry, everybody talks about e-mobility. Who else than us is e-mobile? And I think we have to advertise it a little bit more and put it more into the, let's say, on the poster, on the forefront. We are e-mobility par excellence. Yeah. And to make this awareness and to attract, let's say, our operators, customers, that means the passenger at the end of the day, and also the decision makers and the politicians to invest much more also in the energy saving and so on in this e-mobility, which we already are. where others want to be.
So it's already proven technology today. Yeah.
It's proven technology. It is, yes. Right.
Yeah. But we're just not using it enough. So
Not
it's been
using
around
it enough, and also promoting it enough.
Yes. So it's the image a little bit.
The image
Work
a
on
little
this.
bit. Because we are coming also from a, let's say, pretty good level of energy consumption already. So that means every step is smaller than in absolute terms. If we save 10%, whatever, that's a smaller step than other modes of transport. If they make 10%, it's a huge, much more than absolute figures.
And we have the benefit, in fact, if there's capacity, one extra person on the network and a slight decrease of energy use makes a double positive. So, any other yes, Chris.
Thanks. A few comments, if I may. Firstly, on the question of getting through to the next generation, I'm just going to commend the work that UITP's Youth for Public Transport Forum is doing in actually reaching out to younger people and spreading that message, which is quite positive. But what I really want to talk about, I was going to go back to the eco-driving strategies and the comment there about slowing down the services and saving time. If you go back, if you trundle around most of South London, you will find about 600 or 700 metres before every station a little white diamond on a post beside the line. It's been there for 80 years. Most of them are overgrown, which were coasting markers. When those lines were first electrified in the 1920s, they put up a coasting board. You accelerate out of the station and then you coast. We've known that was the most economical, energy efficient way of driving for 80 years. But what we're now getting to with the modern generation of driver advisory systems, there's some very clever stuff going on in Scandinavia at the moment, where we're talking about dynamic driving, where the train, with all the high-tech kit on the trains that we were talking about this morning, is actually communicating in real time with the traffic management system. So the train, either the driver or the ATO, depending on what you've got, is constantly aware of the regulating of line occupancy, is optimizing the driving performance, the energy consumption of the whole journey. And in fact, what they're finding is you can drive 15, 20, 30% less energy and still keep the same timetable. I mean, tweak the timetable, optimize the running patterns, but you don't actually have to slow the service down in order to make those savings.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Would you like to make any final comments? Maybe I know time is running on, and you're a very enthusiastic audience, and I thank you very much for staying on at this late time. It has been a great session. And just in conclusion, it would be, I think, interesting to just have a few final words from the panel. And my final words is really that today we live in a carbon-constrained world. And in fact, it's in a constrained world, although we have higher communications and we have more freedom in many ways. But there is this carbon constraint. There is also this economic constraint. And actually, society is changing tremendously. So I think that those three things should also be somehow fitted into the three pillars of sustainability. And that was going to be some of the new paradigms, this new DNA that John talked about. Would you like to, anyone have any final comments on, Joe, you haven't said anything, come on. Yeah. You're not going to get away like that.
I just, my pitch on the sustainability, it's also economic sustainability. All the things that we discussed, and I heard three different people discuss, capture the regenerated energy, and I really think that has a huge potential for us. But you look at the, what this current generation is doing. For the first time in, I would say, 25 years, vehicle miles traveled actually took a decrease in our region. And at the same time, we took an upswing on public transit. We're at the 22-year high, and I really think that's positive. We did an extensive marketing campaign, Go Green, Go SEPTA, and all kinds of informative posters out there. how much you save by getting out of your car and into a bus, and how much less pollutants are out there, etc. And I really think the younger generation really accepted that, and they really took it to heart. And I really see a difference. It seems like we lost the whole generation, or maybe 2 generations that relied on public transportation. I still remember my grandmother taking public transportation into her 90s because that's what she did. And you had 2 generations that sort of, took the automobile and were wed to the automobile. Now I see a new generation that's not as wed to the automobile.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.